Imagine waking up on a deserted island after a violent shipwreck. Jen is disoriented, but what she sees next is a nightmare come to life. Her friend Brad lies motionless on the shore, a jagged piece of coral impaled deep in his stomach. Desperation sets in as she tries to save him, dragging him away from the surf and desperately trying to stop the bleeding. But as she struggles, Brad mutters, "Did you see it?" Words that send chills down her spine. With no one else around and time running out, Jen rushes into the jungle for help. But when she returns, it's too late. Brad is already gone. Before moving forward, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. It will help us to keep bringing your favorite movie recaps. Afterward, Jen explores the island. Walking along the beach leads her in a full circle back to where she started. She ventures into the jungle and finds items that appear old and abandoned. Jen yells for help again, but still, no one answers. Searching further, she discovers medicine in a bag and sealed soda bottles in a cooler. Jen finds more objects under some leaves, including a little metal box with matches, some sailcloth, and a bag filled with toys. Suddenly, she hears a strange noise and goes to investigate. The sound comes from a hollow tree, and when she looks inside, a bird startles her by flying out. Jen then covers Brad's body with big leaves. As the sun sets, she searches for a place to spend the night before it starts raining. She uses the sailcloth for cover and leaves some items out to collect rainwater. The next morning, Jen discovers dead fish scattered along the shore and starts collecting them in a bag. She is shocked to find a dead shark with deep gashes on its body. Using rocks, she cuts off all the fish heads and stores them in the cooler for later. While searching another bag, Jen finds a notebook, but the water has washed away the text. Inside, she discovers a picture of a couple, which makes her feel even lonelier. As Jen explores the island further, she finds piles of rocks and a cross-shaped branch. Realizing these are graves, she decides to dig a hole in the sand and bury Brad's rotting body. She covers the grave with leaves and sand and places a piece of wood with Brad's initial as a marker. That night, Jen hangs the torn sailcloth, noticing the gashes match the shark's wounds, and starts a fire with the matches to cook the fish. The following morning, Jen is horrified to find Brad's body missing and the grave filled with blood. Jen realizes there's something dangerous out there, so she makes a spear by attaching a rock to a branch. She also brings a log to use as support and spends the evening sitting with her eyes on the jungle. Eventually, she falls asleep but wakes up in the middle of the night to a strange noise. She looks around the trees but doesn't see anything and assumes it was just the fire. The next day, Jen spots some items floating nearby and swims out to retrieve them. Before heading back, she dives into the water to check for more and is shocked to find a mysterious hole in the ocean floor. Too scared to get closer, she returns to the shore with her newly found items. Inside a suitcase, she discovers clothes and changes into something warmer. That night, she checks the box again and finds pictures of the suitcase's dead owners. Suddenly, she hears a plane flying overhead. Jen quickly runs to the shore and shoots a flare, but the plane doesn't notice her. As the flare falls into the sea, it reveals the silhouette of a strange, tall monster. Terrified, Jen grabs her spear and runs to hide in the jungle. The monster steps onto the island and searches through the bushes, but doesn't find her, eventually leaving without attacking. The next morning, Jen notices the monster has trashed her camp. When she picks up some old pictures, she spots the monster's eyes lurking in the background. Desperate to escape, Jen stuffs Brad's and her life vests into the suitcase and drags it to the water. She tries to use it as a raft, but it wobbles too much and can't hold her weight. Frustrated, Jen throws it back onto the sand. Before sunset, Jen hides inside a hollow tree to sleep safely. Later that night, she wakes up to the sounds of the monster arriving on the island. It grabs her log, rolling and pounding on it. Jen stays completely still, protecting her head and making no noise. After a lot of shaking and growling, the monster loses interest and leaves. Days go by with Jen surviving by fishing during the day and hiding in a hole at night. After some practice, she finally spears a small shark. She hangs it on a tree and falls asleep in her hole, only to wake up and hear the monster taking the shark away. Sometime later, the waves bring another body to the shore. When Jen checks it, she finds its face badly wounded by the monster and its legs completely missing. Jen hangs the body on the tree and hides in her hole. This time, she stays awake to watch the monster arrive. It quickly pulls the body down and starts feeding on it. Suddenly, Jen hears a plane flying overhead and gasps, but she stays hidden because the monster is walking near her hole. When the monster can't find her, it returns to the ocean, but the plane is already gone. The next day, Jen uses the sailcloth, belts, and rope to make a hammock, which she hangs high in the trees. From there, she has a better view of the area and stays out of the monster's reach. That night, Jen rests in her hammock when she sees the monster moving through the bushes. Suddenly, it pulls at the ropes to bring the hammock down. Jen screams and struggles to free herself until she falls. She immediately starts running, with the monster chasing her, jumping in and out of the water to move faster. It eventually lands in front of her. Panicked, Jen stabs it with her spear, but the beast throws her onto the sand. It hits her again, sending her into the water. Just as the beast moves in to kill her, a thunderclap startles it, and it flees. Exhausted and drenched, Jen climbs a tree to sleep, despite the rain and the uncomfortable position. In the morning, Jen checks her leg and finds a nasty wound. While washing and changing clothes, she spots a life raft floating nearby and immediately jumps into the water to reach it. Inside the raft, she finds her boyfriend, Lucas, and Brad's girlfriend, Mia. Jen helps them reach the shore, where Lucas and Mia reunite with a tight hug. Jen then shares her fish and sodas with them and tries to warn them about the monster, insisting they should use the raft to escape.
An animal.
Sweetheart, I'm sure there's a lot of animals.
It's a monster.
We should get out of here.
She shows them a picture and explains Brad's death, but Lucas and Mia dismiss her claims, thinking she's imagining things. They refuse to return to the raft, saying the isolation nearly drove them mad. Later, Jen announces she'll get more food and borrows Lucas' Swiss knife. While cleaning the fish, she notices blood on the blade and becomes suspicious. She urges her friends to leave again, but an argument breaks out, ending with Lucas yelling at her. While Lucas and Mia are distracted, Jen quietly gathers her belongings and pushes the raft into the ocean to escape. However, her friends notice and rush to stop her. Lucas grabs Jen, and during the struggle, she kicks Mia in the face. Enraged, Mia retaliates by knocking Jen out with an oar. When Jen regains consciousness that night, she is horrified to find herself tied to a tree by her friends. Mia refuses to untie Jen when she asks and leaves to give the couple some privacy. Lucas complains about Jen's attitude, saying he was enjoying himself on the boat with his friends, but she wasn't happy and even threatened to break up with him. Jen insists it's not the right time to talk about their relationship, but Lucas keeps yelling. He accuses Jen of having no home, no money, and no life without him. He says she had no right to try to leave him on the island after everything he did for her. When Jen insists they talk later, Lucas says she's sounding too much like his friend Zach, but avoids explaining what happened to him. Meanwhile, Mia walks along the shore and spots pieces of fish in the water. Suddenly, she screams. Lucas grabs a torch and runs to help her, with Jen still tied up. He finds a monster attacking Mia and strikes it with the torch, but the creature pushes him away and drags Mia into the sea. By the time Jen frees herself, it's too late. Only blood remains in the water. The next morning, Lucas finally agrees to leave the island with Jen on the raft. They work together to catch fish and cook them using their last match, preparing provisions for the journey. After packing their supplies, they load the raft and set off at last. Jen spots multiple bloodstains inside the raft and looks shocked. Lucas starts rowing, but suddenly notices the creature swimming beneath them. Its claws reach out to attack, forcing Lucas to dive into the raft while Jen quickly seals it shut. The monster doesn't stop and begins scratching the bottom of the raft. After a few powerful strikes that shake the entire raft, it punches a hole and sticks its head inside. Jen kicks the creature, and Lucas fires the flare gun. He misses the first shot but hits the beast's mouth with the second flare. Taking advantage of the moment, they use a spear to push it back into the water. Just as they think they're safe, the creature bursts through the raft base and drags Jen underwater, aiming to take her to its lair. Struggling to break free, Jen remembers Lucas' dagger and stabs the creature. It releases her and swims away. But as Lucas dives into the water to save Jen, the creature spots him, rushes over, and grabs him. It drags Lucas into its lair. Devastated, Jen screams in despair, but manages to swim back to shore. She notices a faint spark in the fire they thought was extinguished. Acting quickly, she works to rekindle it until the flames roar back to life. Jen grabs the notebook and writes a letter explaining what's happening in case she dies and someone finds her. She has a plan. She makes a bunch of spears, gathers wood and leaves, and digs holes in the sand. While digging, she finds a skeleton and decides to use the bones for her plan. When night falls, the monster comes out of the water and wanders through the jungle, following the smell of fish. As the beast reaches the bait, Jen lights several pyres to trap it in the center. She then surprises the creature by stabbing it with a spear before running to hide behind a tree. The monster searches for her, and Jen waits for it to turn its back. She stabs it with a bone, but quickly gets knocked down. Refusing to give up, Jen stabs the monster again, but it hits her hard enough to send her flying. Seeing the beast bleeding and in pain, Jen keeps fighting. She stabs it repeatedly with any bone she can find, even as it hits her in return. The creature pushes her down onto the sand, but Jen stabs its arm to free herself. It grabs her legs and pulls her closer, lifting her by her face, ready to kill her. Jen grabs one last bone and repeatedly stabs the wound she left earlier, forcing the monster to drop her. It strikes her with its claws one last time, but the pain weakens it, leaving it barely able to move. Jen seizes the moment to run back to the beach and grab more spears. The monster quickly catches up to her, but after letting out a loud roar, it collapses on the sand. Jen notices it's still breathing, so she stabs it repeatedly with the spear until it's completely dead. Then, she breaks off a piece of its hard shell and uses it to cut off the monster's head. Carrying the head as proof of her encounter, Jen heads back to the raft while the jungle burns in the background. And that's how the movie ends. What did you think? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more amazing videos. See you next time.